All right. Now, listen to what Mr. Geithner had to say, who is the Secretary of the Treasury. He's being interviewed by Miss, just a moment, I'll give her name for you in a moment. Erin Burnett. She got her own show now. She was an anchor on CNN, now she got her own show. So listen.
Remains grim in America. U.S. stocks losing nearly $4 trillion in value since their highs this spring. 401ks crushed. Housing prices still 30% below their highs. Unemployment sky high. Today, Fed Chief Ben Bernanke admitted the economic recovery is, quote, close to faltering. But still, even with all that, America is still the best place to prosper in all the world. And we can keep it that way. Everywhere I travel overseas, I hear about America being a leader in freedom from young people. And from business people, I get pleas for America to rise again because they still admire American ingenuity. And yes, even after the financial crisis, they admire American financial power. Today, the ultimate image of American power, not an FA-18. No, it is this, the iPhone 4S. It had its own press conference today to debut, and we did the numbers. There are 128 million iPhones in the world right now, and there isn't a child anywhere I've met who doesn't want one. In China, actually, I think iPhone is a synonym for America. And that's why every night we're counting up. We're going to count how many days since America lost its top credit rating. It has been 60 days, and our goal is to get it back, because psychologically, it matters. So to get there, we've enlisted a team of 20 of the most important business leaders in America. It's called the Strike Team. The Strike Team members joined because they agree that business needs to step up and influence policy in a constructive way. Tech, autos, investors, sports, banks, manufacturing, entrepreneurs. They're going to vote on key economic issues throughout the election season. And tonight, I asked them 3 questions. Is another recession inevitable at this point? Will President Obama's jobs plan create jobs? And if a U.S. investment bank were close to failure, the example was Morgan Stanley, would you support a bailout at this time? The Strike Team weighed in on tonight's interview. Special guest Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner is here with me on set. Secretary Geithner, great pleasure to see you. Thank you so much.
Nice to see you. I like the optimism.
We're trying. So let me just say, it feels like deja vu. Right? The 400 point swing up is good for today, but we're on the precipice again, close to a bear market. One prominent forecasting group had said that the recession was inevitable, which is why I used that term in the question. I think you're going to be excited about this. So the Strike Team, which includes members from Cisco and DuPont and Ford and a lot of other big companies, 17 of them said a recession is not inevitable at this point. We're talking about a double dip. Are they right, or are the people who say it's inevitable right?
I think they're right, but it depends really on 2 things. It depends first on how effective the Europeans are in dealing with their financial crisis, because that's putting a severe burden on growth around the world, and it's a very serious great crisis. And so it depends importantly on what they do in Europe. But it also depends on our ability at Congress to do something to make growth strong in the United States.
Obviously, there's been a lot of fighting today on Congress about the jobs bill. The Republicans have been pushing it, knowing it would fail. Republicans are saying it won't pass. How much are you willing to give on it as a sign that the bill itself wasn't a political push by the president, but a real effort to get something done?
Well, let me just say, it is very important that Congress do things to make the economy stronger now. We're not growing fast enough. We're very vulnerable to what's happening in Europe. You're seeing growth slow around the world. Unemployment is still very high in the United States. And the overwhelming responsibility we all have is to do more now to strengthen the economy. Now, we put on the table a very smart, very strong, very powerful package. People may have better ideas, but we have not seen a plan that would do nearly as much for the economy and be as effective in strengthening the economy, getting more Americans back to work that has any chance of passing.
It's just interesting. I want to put this up here so we can show our viewers of the Strike Team. And interesting, a lot of these guys have a lot of employees, some entrepreneurs. 10 of them thought that the President's jobs plan would create jobs, and 10 of them said it would not. So it's a 50-50 on that.
We just said there's no credible argument this plan wouldn't create jobs. Of course it'll create jobs. And every economist, let me put it differently, broad cross-section economists. Well, it's not just that. Remember, every person who has a job in the United States today gets a substantial tax cut. That's more money in their pockets at a time when Most Americans are hurting still. Every business gets a tax cut, and they get a bigger tax cut if they hire an additional worker. They hire a veteran, hire somebody long-term unemployed. In addition to that, there's very smart, sensible investments to help rebuild the country, repair schools, repair roads, repair bridges. Those are like tax cuts too, because what they do is they reduce the cost of businesses trying to compete in this global economy. And without those actions, the economy is going to be weaker, growth will be slower, more people will be out of work longer, and there's no reason why we should accept that outcome.
Can the bill, though, make up for the European problem? I mean, is it sort of a P relative to the watermelon that has become the European crisis, which is much bigger than Greece? Because more and more people I'm hearing are saying Europe could be a bigger threat to America than Lehman Brothers, which ended up triggering the financial crisis.
Well, as I said at the beginning, what Europe's facing is very tough, very difficult. It's caused a lot of damage already, not just in Europe, but around the world, and it could do a lot more damage if they don't act effectively. But, they've effectively decided the key things. They're not going to let the euro break up. They're not going to let the European Monetary Union fall apart. They're going to stand behind their financial system. They're going to take the steps to move closer to fiscal union with the broader disciplines on budget policy you need to make monetary union work. They've made those decisions. What they haven't done yet is put in place the financial capacity to make that work. That's what they're trying to negotiate right now.
After they pick on you and tell you to get out of their business, what do you know? Like the German guy said recently when you told them to increase the size of the fund.
They're going to do what would be more polite. I think they're going to do what they need to do to get their arms around this. They haven't done it yet. And you've heard them today. That's probably why I see a little more confidence in it. You hear them talking out today about the kind of comprehensive approach,
right.
Stronger financial firewall, support for their financial system that's necessary to make that broad thing work. But they got to move more quickly, with more force.
And now, one of the reasons Europe matters to America is our banks. And our banks are a third real topic still in this country. Many predicting Goldman Sachs could lose money in the quarter, for the first quarter since the financial crisis. Morgan Stanley obviously has been hit by repeated market concern about its viability because of Europe. Now, I asked the strike team and our viewers about whether a bank, and Morgan Stanley is a completely hypothetical example, but it appeared to be that's the sort of size we were talking about, whether a bank of that size would merit bailout by the U.S. government. The strike team, 10 of them said yes, bail it out. Systemically important for American economy. 9 of them said no, one abstained. I'm not going to tell you who that was. Our viewers, obviously, 180 degrees. Almost all of them. Tony Avila, a good example. No, why should the U.S. taxpayers bail them out? Who is bailing out the millions of unemployed? If it comes to it, is a company of Morgan Stanley's size systemically important enough for bailout?
Nobody in my position can answer a question like that. It's one thing you learn when you serve in public service. But let me say the following things to be helpful. The American financial system is in a much stronger position today than it was 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 18 months ago before the crisis to handle and deal with and manage the pressures we're seeing from Europe and slower growth around the world. We're in a much stronger position because we forced these firms to go out and raise a huge amount of capital very early. We let the weakest parts of America...
Now, you know what he means when he said we did this. He's talking about the Obama administration. He's a part of the Obama administration telling you what's been done so that what happened up to 2008 won't happen no more. But they say that the president ain't done nothing, right? Always get suspicious of somebody who tell you that someone who's in a position of authority, they couldn't find nothing that person did right. Then how in the world did he ever get elected if he was that dumb? Do you know how dumb you have to be for him to get elected? I mean, it's an insult to your intelligence. Do this man here, who, by the way, President Obama appointed him, do he sound like a dummy? Now, he's a white man. Now, what is the problem? Listen.
American financial system wash out of the system, and we did some very tough things earlier on. So we're in a much stronger place today. We want to make sure Europe fixes this problem so we're less vulnerable to Europe's challenges, and we want to make sure Congress acts to do things that are within our control to strengthen the economy now and to pass the Jobs Act to do that.
So...
And again, that's the best thing we can do for the American financial system today.
You heard him say, pass this Jobs Act? You heard that, right? What? Are you aware, you ever heard the term the Industrial Revolution? Do you know the Industrial Revolution was talking about all of the bridges and all of the buildings and industry that was put up in America? That was what the Industrial Revolution was. The president just got, him and his administration got creative, and they said, let's do another Industrial Revolution. Let's rebuild America. Now, they didn't think of that. So, no, we'll do that after we get that nigga out. Yes, sir. Huh? Oh, don't worry. It ain't just me saying this. Listen.
Is to repair it, reform it, and strengthen the economy. Stronger growth is the best path to lower employment, more people back to work, better housing market, and that's why this Jobs Act is so important.
And how do you get around this issue, though, where there is such animosity and venom towards the banks? A lot of bad mistakes were made by the banks and a lot of bad decisions were made. They got bailed out. Taxpayers made money on the bailout. It still doesn't matter to a lot of people in this country.
You see she slipped that in there? Didn't they say that bailout was the stimulus package was a failure? But the taxpayer made billions of dollars off of it. Huh? It was a failure to who? You see, they're playing with words on it. Then, if you heard Rush Limbaugh say he hoped that President Obama failed. Yes. And they was doing things behind the Republicans and, those who think like that, not all of them, but the ones who think like that, was doing things behind closed doors to see that he did fail. And when they failed to see that it failed, they called it a failure. On their part. Do you understand? They play with words on it. Yes. They talking to each other, and you taking it for granted that they talking to you. Well, that's the way they did the slave, Well, John, we got to get out our crops. John thinks he's talking about his crop too. He ain't even thought about the fact he owned nothing. Huh? If he'd have said, yeah, well, go ahead. He'd have said, what you say, nigga? But anyway, we pass all that, man. That stuff don't. But listen.
Just hate him. What do you do about that?
It's not gonna go away for a very long time. People are gonna hold on to that basic sense of unfairness and anger and frustration until they see a dramatic, meaningful improvement in the quality of their lives. In the sense that this is a country of possibility still, their future is going to be stronger, and that they've seen the government of the United States put in place stronger protections to protect them from the kind of abuses we saw. And that's why these reforms that Congress passed about 18 months ago, 18 months ago, are so important, and that's why we're fighting to make sure those reforms meet the promise of the legislation, not just for consumers, but to make sure banks are taking less risk where they need to.
Now, it's going to cut back to Michael Moore and Tyler Smiley in a minute. Michael Moore going to share some things with you about the Republicans, what they done confessed to.